The best employees have this one crucial skill in common. This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Focus Group. Tim Bennett here. As always, with my good coast and fro. What was I going to say? I said it all wrong. Good friend and co-host. Co-frost. Good foast and co-frost. Yeah, good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. I was going to say, John, I feel like for August, I've been on the road a bit. I know you have as well, and you'll be going on the road again, but I was in New Jersey and Philly and Connecticut, and now I'm going back to Philly this week, and so I feel like August has been travel, and I know you've had travel.
Yep.
And have more travel coming up. So thanks for joining us here in the as we wind down to the end of summer, and on the focus group. And thanks to our friends at Deep Discount who've been with us for the long haul here. So, Mr. Nash, over the weekend, I had the opportunity to go see. Usually not my sort of thing, but our friends Patrick and Howard are very big theater.
Were they down for the weekend?
They were, they live in Reubens, yeah. So, they were down, but they always do theater and a lot of cabaret things. But they had this special cabaret with Eden Espinosa, who I was not necessarily familiar with her, but she was in Wicked, particularly in L.A. and I think San Francisco. But she had a part in Wicked, also the Broadway play Brooklyn, Lampika, a few other things. And she put on this cabaret with this guy, John McDaniel, who used to be the musical director for the Rosie O'Donnell Show. And they did it in the little Clear Space Theater here in Rehoboth, and it was fantastic.
Really?
It was so good. I was so glad that they invited Richard and I to go. Not something I would have normally done, but it was so much fun, and it was just great. And I hadn't been to anything like that. I think the last time you and I went to see Cheetah Rivera.
You jogged my memory. We had a great night. That was at below 54
below. Yeah. And I forget how much fun it is to do that sort of thing. And she was, Eden Espinosa was charming and fun and relatable, and just it was a great show, and I'm glad we did it.
Good set. You like the songs they did?
Yeah, I didn't know a lot of them because I don't.
They weren't standards.
She didn't do a lot of. Some of the things she did obviously were recognizable, but. Mm-hmm. A lot of the shows, like she had said, in Brooklyn and Lampika, both of those shows she felt were ahead of their time. She said they had almost a cult following, and people that loved them, but they didn't last long. She says that's the nature of the business.
Yeah.
Some shows will open, they close early. She told a story about she auditioned 11 times for Wicked.
Wow.
And she kept getting this one casting director that she said, I'd always make it to the very end, like the last two. And she finally said to the casting director, why am I not getting, what can I do? Do you have any tips or anything? And the woman just says to her, don't sound like the soundtrack. She wanted it to be her own, which she thought was, an interesting
What an interesting
take.
Note, right? Don't sound...
Because she looks at the audience, she goes, I thought if I sounded like, the original actress well, that's what we want. But they wanted, I guess she said they wanted somebody to make it their own.
Interpret.
But I thought that was an
original.
interesting take. Yeah. So it was fun. So thanks to our friends Patrick and Howard. But I'm on the road again and heading north.
So we're going to visit friends on Thursday out in Dingman's Ferry, and then we're going up to the house. Yeah, a lot of car travel. But hey, quick programming note and a little surprise for Tim. September, right around the corner, is Criterion Month here on the Focus Group. And listeners of the show for a long time know that's our time of year to resurrect Pick That Flick, a game we used to play on Sirius Satellite Radio where I would play the 8 to 10 second audio clue from a movie, and if you knew the title, you'd send it to us and you'd win a CD if you were right, or a DVD. I have a lot of fun finding the clips, and I was doing that over the weekend. I had pulled up about 8 or 10 movies that I wanted to grab some stuff from. But in my searching and doing all my stuff and looking through folders, I came across something that still to this day makes me practically cry. So back when Tim and I were in the studio, We had the boys in the booth. We had a listener send Tim a note one day, and he said, "You really have to listen to your show slowed down," because I guess he was in the car and he hit that button that speeds it up through ads and then slows it down. And I'm going to play a little bit of one of these segments where it was a caught my eye, and NASA had done these posters, like travel posters, come to Mars, right? And I'm going on about these posters. And this is Tim now jumping into the Mars discussion.
Why not say, come try the electric chair? I mean, that's a death sentence. Jeez Louise. Right? I think there's one last pair before we give it the surveyors wanted, farmers wanted. I'm trying to keep this as fun and excites kids. You're going to Mars! You're gonna die!
We sound like Larry Flint.
What are you gonna do up there?
You're going to Mars. You're going to die. You know,
We sound like Larry Flint from Hustler magazine.
I may spread these out and do these over the next couple of shows because I also found one called The Balloon Man. And Tim does this long thing about Lawn Chair Larry. Do you remember Lawn Chair Larry?
Yes, you should put those on the feed for Unbuttoned, because that's audio, right?
Yes.
Is it both audio? But what's
They're
audio?
all audio, yeah.
So you should put it on for Unbuttoned, and we can just, best of. We'll do a best of and see what kind of traffic we get. I think they're hilarious.
So this listener was like, guys, Comic Gold, you need to listen to your whole show slowed down. It was, and that one,
yeah, because it's not funny in normal time.
There's one called Pot. I wonder. Let's see. I think. And it's you talking about sending yourself marijuana from Amsterdam is like getting a 8-ball from Colombia or something.
Physically get it, put in the car, and drive with it. Yeah, it's like trying to get, pot out of Colorado, right? You can't order it online. Can you ship it? No. No, but there's I bet you if you were someone who hung out at the airport and just dumpster dove all day, you'd get weed like no one's business, right, John? Our tech John is like, yeah, that's people are doing it for flight, but people are doing longer layovers. Well, because the pot dispensary is right outside the airport. You could do a 2-hour, 3-hour layover and get there. They're not going to check your bag. I'll tell you. Let me tell you this. I'll just.
I thought you'd get a kick out of that.
Oh my God, I forgot all about. Well, of course, you and I forget the show the day after it's done.
Well, and I save a lot of our audio, and I have it scattered in a couple different folders. And I was looking for a particular clue to a movie that I know I had done before, but it was years ago. It was like 2015 or something. And I thought, I'm not going to use the same clue, but I want to hear what I did before. And then I found these. Lawn Chair Larry, Balloon Man, the pot thing, the Mars one's even longer. There's a whole thing before the Mars thing about sending yourself a speedball, from a South American country and crazy stuff. Yeah.
Well, I love it. So, Mr. Nash, without further ado, besides that, what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
Mine's a short one. It was online for a microsecond before it was pulled down, and it involves Home Depot, of all things, and our friends in Florida. So the Republican Party of Florida decided it would be a gas and a laugh riot to create merchandise promoting Deportation Depot. They have Alligator Alcatraz. They're building another place for the migrants and the immigrants called Deportation Depot. And what do? They rip off Home Depot's orange square and the typeface. They created T-shirts, mugs, cozies for your beer. Ha 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 ha! Oh, these Republicans are so funny. So Home Depot said, "Stop this." The company did not approve the new merchandise line tied to the Deportation Depot detention center. And this is so this is a Republican Florida party. Governor DeSantis announced a new immigration detention center dubbed the Deportation Depot, and they just went right at it. Let's have some merch. 2 days into hawking its new merch line, the items were removed from its digital storefront after Home Depot reportedly accused the Florida GOP of copywriting its trademark, blocky stencil font, and bright orange square without permission. We don't allow any organization to use our branding or logo. That makes sense. Although posts about the Deport Depot items have been removed on X on Sunday, the Washington Post reported that one promotion remained on Instagram until about a half hour after the newspaper inquired. So they went crazy and they pulled this all down. But here we are. I don't remember a time when I would have imagined a political party turning something like this into a merch opportunity and then getting shut down. But I guess it's funny to some people that we're, these mass deportations. I don't know.
Well, they copied the dear leader. I mean, he's hawking everything.
Mm-hmm.
So even his suit, right? That he was selling swatches of his suit.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, you could buy the suit he was arraigned in. Remember when he got indicted for the in Georgia, and he took that suit and they cut it in little pieces, and you could buy a piece, I think, for $1,000 or something. So yeah, everything's got a price on it, John.
And everything apparently can be turned into a joke or a merchandise. And Deport Depot. Here's the thing. Did they not assume that the Home Depot would be a little pissed off about this? Or are they so in their own little cloudy world and bubble that this is just hilarious and it should be funny unless you're a libtard or something?
Right, and the Home Depot should get it. Should be funny. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it should understand it. Well, on a sidebar to this, of course, they raided Bolton, right?
Yep.
Ambassador Bolton, Secretary Bolton's house, and are claiming that he had probably top secret or illegal documents. But I thought, whatever happened to the Florida case with Trump when they had him stacked in the bathroom at Mar-a-Lago? That's okay.
Yeah.
The hypocrisy is just unbelievable.
Well, and apparently everybody in America is okay with the retribution parade. Mm-hmm. It's not. There were jurors put in verdicts of guilty. Mm-hmm. They were a mix of people. Some are Republicans, some are Democrats. They were in different states. Are we just tossing that all aside because this one guy who everybody seems to bow down to says, I'm on a retribution tour?
Of course, Putin made him look like such a fool. He continues to make him look like a fool. And in effect, the country is making us look like fools.
Tim, is that correct that shortly after the Alaska summit, they bombed a factory in Ukraine that was run by United States interests?
Yeah, apparently. That's what has been reported. But they do know for sure that he's actually stepped up his bombing by twice as much since the summit. So he's now, instead of dropping one bomb a day, he's dropping two. But it's far more than that. And but just made Trump look like an idiot once again, as Putin has done to every president since Bush Sr. And everybody will tell you that he's an old KGB agent. He knows what he's doing. Why Trump thought he was going to outsmart him, never going to happen. And I just wish the Senate would, and Lindsey Graham would, the Senate.
Are they still there?
Ladybug Graham would get off his ass and get these sanctions.
The Republican-controlled House and Senate have all just gone into the woodworks. You know who you don't hear from a lot anymore? Jim Jordan. You don't hear a lot from Marjorie Taylor Greene. You don't hear a lot from the firebrands because basically they've been told to keep their mouth shut, step up, and vote for the one big beautiful bill and strip Americans of health care. Okay.
Yeah. There's supposed to be a documentary, if it hasn't come out already, about Jim Jordan in the Ohio State wrestling.
I think that's on HBO. And it's people said it's kind of I've read a review and I want to see it, and the review that I read said it's hard to imagine he didn't know what was going on considering the physical space it went on in. Mm-hmm. Almost impossible not to know it. So,
of course,
there you go. What on a happier note, what caught your eye?
Well, off to our dear leader again. This took place in Alaska, little untold story. Putin, Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, gives a man in Alaska, a new motorcycle after he complained about the cost to repair his Soviet-era bike because of the war. So right prior to the summit in Alaska where Trump was meeting Putin, there was a Russian news crew that decided to comb through Alaska to get some, man on the street
B-roll.
interviews.
Yeah.
And exactly. And as they were filming, this guy goes by on a motorcycle, and his name is Mark Warren, and he lives in Anchorage. And he was riding this motorcycle, and they noticed that it was a Russian Soviet-era motorcycle. So they wanted to talk to him. So they pulled him over and said, what do you think of the summit, whatever. And he was kind of nonplussed by the whole thing, didn't have any expectations about the summit. But he said, my only concern is that with this war going on and with the sanctions against Russia and some of the former Soviet bloc countries, I can't get parts for my motorcycle. And he bought this Ural motorcycle, URAL, named after the Ural Mountains. And it's a special sidecar. You really can't see it in the picture you're watching here, but they make sidecar motorcycles only, and they're two-wheel drive, so they're for rugged terrain or whatever.
Interesting. Okay.
Which has a sidebar. Have you ever ridden in a sidecar motorcycle?
No.
I never had either, and I've always wanted to. I thought maybe you and I could do a cross-country trip like the two fat ladies. Remember them?
I do remember, and we have to get the goggles, right?
But I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not. It might be fun to ride around a parking lot, but so the Soviet news crew. So this clip of him with this Russian news crew about him complaining about not able to get parts went viral in Russia. Millions and millions of hits, they said, and viral to the point that Putin had seen it. So he contacted the consulate and the Russian embassy, and so when Putin arrived, they handed over. So this motorcycle company now left Kazakhstan. They're assembled in Kazakhstan. But it's run out of Washington State, of all places. But they were able to get a new motorcycle for him, and the Russian embassy, while Putin was in town, presented him this new Ural motorbike. And from the gift from Putin, he said, this comes from President Vladimir Putin. Thank you for your friendship, blah, blah, blah. He said, so when they asked him about what he thought about it, he said, I'm speechless. It's amazing. It's very nice. It's a nice bike. He said, however, if the news crew or the Russians are thinking to get anything from me, they're going to get nothing. Like he's not going to say anything. He said, but he has gotten a lot of backlash from both sides. He said, people are pissed off because I took the motorcycle, and other people are pissed off because I didn't take the motorcycle. He said, I don't care. It's a good bike, and I'm glad I got it.
There you go.
And went on. But
I like the fact that he didn't want to give the news crew anything. It's cool, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't solve his spare part problem.
Well, he's got this new bike now, so he doesn't need the other one, I guess, for now, or to get the parts. But, you're exactly right. It says the company, all the motorcycles are currently assembled in Kazakhstan, but it's because the production was pulled out of Russia after the invasion, so they moved the Russian factory to Kazakhstan, so they were able to still export motorcycles. And it's run by, and I tried to do more research, and I just scratched my head. So the company moved out of Russia years ago, I guess, and they're based in Washington State, yet the products still come from Russia and
From Kazakhstan.
Yeah. So the guy got a motorbike, which was nice
Well, it
thing.
seems like Caught Our Eye ended up in political territory. But, Tim, you've said this to me privately. When you and I go through our news sources, it's harder and harder to find the benign, funny human interest thing or the thing that normally amuses us because it's just overwhelmingly political all the time, the news.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
almost like you have to go to another planet to get away from it.
Yeah.
Folks, we're going to take a really quick break here on the Focus Group, and when we come back, we have our signature business birthday for you and a shop talk that Tim teased at the start, and it's some wisdom from Mark Cuban. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to the focus group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Welcome back to the focus group. Tim Bennett here with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. Learn all about us at Focus Group Radio is our media handle. Be sure to catch our podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned, which is released on Tuesdays. You'll also find the audio and all of our media housed there. So, Mr. Nash, without further ado, we've got our business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So after 17 plus years on the air, John, doing these birthdays and our show, you're bound to have repeats and whatever. So today's birthday may be considered a celebrity birthday. Mm-hmm. But he also he built quite an empire around his character. So today's birthday, we celebrate Paul Reubens, a.k.a. Pee Wee Herman. Born August 27th, 1952. He died July 30th in 2023 at 70 years old. He had cancer. American actor and comedian, widely known, of course, for creating and portraying the character Pee Wee Herman. And so we're celebrating his birthday today. There's a documentary out. Have you seen the documentary about him?
Yes, and in fact, the documentary led us to also watch the one that you recommended about
Willis Wonderland.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, good friends with him. So he was born in Peekskill, New York. He grew up in Oneonta. He had ended up going to theater school in California at the California Arts Academy. And his classmates, which I thought were, California Arts Academy, his classmates were Katie Segal, Michael Richards of Seinfeld, and David Hasselhoff. Actually, his roommate was David Hasselhoff, which I thought was hilarious. But he had, do you know or do you remember how he said he created Pee Wee Herman?
It was for a, wasn't he part of that theater group in Los Angeles?
The Groundlings, yeah. Right, he created this character, and Pee Wee Herman, and he got the name he took the name Pee Wee off of a harmonica box he knew when he was a little kid. It was a small harmonica, Pee Wee harmonica. And Herman was the name of kind of this rambunctious kid when he was growing up. So he came up with the name Pee Wee Herman. And he said what really happened is he had this character, and the character he would do it stand-up or improv in L.A. and in some sort of travel small-town sort of theater. And he went to interview or audition for Saturday Night Live. And Gilbert Gottfried was also auditioning.
Yeah.
And he was pissed because he said, I knew right away we were of the same ilk, the same sort of comedy. So he knew he wasn't going to get accepted, and he wasn't. So that's why he said he got mad and decided to go back to L.A. when he didn't get cast in SNL and bring Pee Wee Herman to life more and create this whole show around Pee Wee Herman, which he did. Prior to that, he had, which I thought was funny, 14 guest appearances on The Gong Show.
Do you know that's in the documentary? It's a two-parter, by the way, and I totally used to watch The Gong Show, but didn't really realize he had so many appearances.
Well, they said his most popular character, and I don't remember this at all, on The Gong Show, which he thought actually might be his
signature
to stardom, but it became Pee Wee Herman instead. And he said, and thank God it didn't. On The Gong Show, he did a Native American lounge singer act called Jay Longtoe. And he said he was decked out in a sequin loincloth and a really kind of flamboyant feathered hairdress, and he was this Native American lounge singer. And he said the crowds ate it up. He said people went crazy for it. It was hilarious. He said, I love the fact that people were laughing about it. He goes, now when I look at it, he goes, it wasn't even borderline racist. It was full-on racist, he said. And he thought, this was going to propel him to fame. And he said, thank goodness it didn't. And he ended up, doing the Pee Wee show. But the number of, over the years with him doing spits and stars with the show and programming and movies and Pee Wee Herman. But they said in his heyday, he was bringing in the merch surrounding Pee Wee was about $25 million a year.
Wow.
So
You
I
mean
thought
like all the toys, right?
the toys, the DVDs, the discs, the movies, there was a
Children's bed
clothing
sheets.
line
He was everywhere. Yeah.
everywhere. He even said they tried to do a cereal. But he refused to do a candy bar. He was asked to do candy bar commercials. He was asked to do other sort of kids products, toys, and he wouldn't do anything in that regard. But he was really concerned about kids' health and eating. So he said he put together. He worked with Ralston Purina. Now that's dog food, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I thought that was even just as odd. But he worked with them to do a children's sugar-free cereal. And and they said they did blind taste tests. They said it tasted so bad that they ended up, they ended up not doing it. They said it was called Ralston Purina Pee Wee Chow cereal. It was sugar free, and it just had such a negative reaction that they got rid of it. He also was a very heavy smoker. And he had hired security to make sure that no photographers were ever able to get a picture of him smoking in his Pee Wee outfit or his costume.
Interesting.
And so he died, as I said, he died at 70. Didn't tell people he was sick. He
Took everybody by surprise, Tim. That was the documentary. People,
Yep.
In fact, the documentarian who was making the film about him had to learn about his death through someone calling and saying it's just been reported in the news.
Yeah, they said he lived with a diagnosis of leukemia. He had leukemia and lung cancer for about 6 years, and after his death, they released the sentence, and he was cremated. But he kept trying to figure out, were there ways he can get away from the Pee Wee character and be himself? And it wasn't until, of course, everybody knows in 1991 when he got caught at the adult theater, supposedly exposing himself. This was in 1991 in Sarasota, Florida. And he was taking care of his dad, and he disappeared for about 10 years. He was doing some voiceover work and doing some other work on other programming where he would have appearances. But he essentially went out of character, they said, for about 9 years and just kind of laid low. It was the third time he was arrested. I didn't realize he was arrested.
I didn't know that either.
Times.
No.
Yeah, he was arrested one time for having possession of marijuana. Also, and then another time, there was another issue. He said loitering and prowling near an adult theater. Then he was sadly accused of kind of child porn, which was
He
there was
fought
another.
that, though.
He fought it and he won. It was another actor named Jeffrey Jones who was also facing pornography charges, and blamed it on Pee Wee Herman. Said, "Oh, he's got all this stuff," but what Pee Wee was doing, he would collect old erotica from the 60s. None of it
Which
had
is not-
children in
yeah.
it. And it was art photos and whatever. And they even said when the district attorney looked at the stuff, it just said, this is not, But you say it and you put somebody's name out there and you tarnish them. It's horrible. And I remember that part in the documentary of saying this is really sad that somebody would go after him like that and totally ruin his reputation. Particularly somebody that would also had an appeal to children, right? I mean, it was kind of sad. But so that's our business birthday this week, just because there were a couple others we had done before on this day, August 27th. But I had a whole new appreciation after watching that documentary.
Oh,
for
my
Paul
God.
Reubens.
Totally. I can't recommend it enough. And, Tim, that 10-year gap in his career, didn't he also go on Murphy Brown?
He was a Murphy Brown. They said, I have it here.
He did a couple
I want to
guest-
say 6 times. He might have been Murphy's.
Well, he played like some
assistant
assistant or
Yeah.
someone in the newsroom, yeah.
Yeah, he was on Murphy Brown. They list it looks over 30 shows he was on. He was on everything from Sesame Street to a number of other Disney shows, and he won 22 Emmy Awards just in the last year on Pee Wee's Playhouse on CBS. So the show ran from '86 until 1990. He said he got burned out from doing the programming, but CBS wanted him to stay. They were going to do a cartoon. They were going to do a claymation. They agreed to do 45 episodes the last year in the Christmas special, which the Christmas special, as we know, is
Best. The
hands
best.
down, right?
Yeah.
The recurring role so they said in the 90s, he had a recurring role on Murphy Brown, earned him positive reviews, and was his only non-Pee Wee Emmy nomination.
Yep.
And he was on the show 6 times between 95 and 97. He was also going to do a movie right before he died. He had 2 scripts in the works. One of them was kind of an adult Pee-wee, and people were a little afraid of it. And so it was kind of this comic gone wrong kind of. He said it was very dark humor. But Netflix ended up doing Pee-wee's Big Holiday, which was the last thing he did. In 2015, I've not seen that. I don't know if you have.
Neither have I, and I'm not sure it's, like for the movies, for example, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, great. Yep. We're at the Alamo. Look at the man making, they are making tortillas at the Alamo. And then there was Big Top Pee-wee, which we recently saw parts of, and that movie, that's not one of my favorites, Big Top Pee-wee. No.
The movies to me were not some of my favorites either.
Oh, it was the show. It was Pee-wee's Playhouse. That was the killer. Yeah. So
they said he was in Star Wars. Did you know that? It's Galaxy's Edge.
Oh, well, that has to do with Disney World. Galaxy's Edge is he might be in some videos that show in Disney World.
He was a droid named. He was a pilot droid. He piloted a droid named Rex or something, or pilot droid.
Yeah, if
Rex.
He's in Galaxy's Edge, then they're using his voice as part of the theme park.
Okay. Yeah. So he did voiceover work too. But anyway, happy birthday, Paul Reubens. He sounds like somebody would have been a friend of ours probably back in the day.
And yeah.
Katie Segal said his dorm room. He said most of us had posters up with Scotch tape. They said his dorm room was just like Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Really?
And they said as where all the parties were in the dorm, everybody hung out there. They said he had it fully decorated with all kinds of kitsch, and which people just, at 17, 18, 19 years old, you wouldn't have thought of, but he was that far ahead of
the curve.
Kids and culture at that time. Yeah. So our shop talk today, as John mentioned before break, and as I had teased earlier, comes from Mark Cuban. It comes from Inc. magazine by the writer Jeff Hayden. And the headline caught my eye because it said, Mark Cuban says the best employees share one crucial yet nearly overlooked skill. And so this writer had talked about how people often ask what are the best qualities for your best employees, or who are the best employees you ever managed, or what do you look for when you hire somebody? And so then the writer thought about, I'm going to ask Mark Cuban this question. And do you want to share what the answer was that Mark Cuban gave?
So Cuban's perspective on what makes an employee outstanding, this is his quote: "The people that tend to work for me a long time not only are smart, not only are driven, not only are learners. They understand that the greatest value you can offer a boss is to reduce their stress. The people who tend to think that they are invaluable are typically the ones who create the most stress by creating firestorms and creating drama and making things more difficult for me. Anybody who reduces my stress becomes invaluable to me. I never want to get rid of them." I thought it was brilliant, actually.
Yeah, it reminded me of, I used to always talk to you about one of the bosses I had would always say, no surprises.
Yes,
sometimes.
no surprises,
and so,
yeah.
How can you alleviate the nonsense that I have to deal with every day and just either anticipate it, or if there is a problem, tell me there's a problem, but here's how we're going to fix it, so that you've already solved it before you go to them with the issue. I thought what was important, or what was interesting about the Mark Cuban statement that it's kind of relieving of stress is important for, even in our business, being in an agency, right? Because you could say we could be a value or a resource to somebody that says, I know you're concerned about X, Y, and Z. Here's where we stand on this, or here's where we believe you should be headed, or here's what you should do. There's been a couple of meetings that you and I had over the years recently where I'm not sure the client knew that we had been prepared for something that they weren't prepared for.
Right.
And I remember saying, well, I remember them broaching the problem saying, well, we know we're going to have an issue with A, B, and C, and say, well, actually, we've created a opinion on this, or we have an opinion on this, and we can share it if you want to share your screen with a deck or something. And I'm not so sure we ever got credit for being that thoughtful.
I'm thinking of a consultant's consulting gig we did with a firm up in Boston, and they were very worried about a couple things. And I was presenting the deck, our solution, and some of the creative, and you were watching, because when you present, sometimes you don't get to see other people, but you were watching the client, who literally looked relieved when we're like, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do that, this is what you could do. And that was a stress reducer. And I think VW one time, we got a call from the head of media or something, and she was going to be interviewed for something, and you gave her like a 2-page bullet points. Here's where you're at. Here's what you've been doing. And is that the one you're referring to? Or
No, well, that one you remind me of, but there was another one with out of the company in Cincinnati where we were thrown into a meeting with a bunch of unknown people, and thankfully we had created a deck. And I remember the lead client started going down a road. I think he just thought we were just all going to ramble on the call. And we had cut in and said, by the way, we actually have a position on this and we have a road path. And he was delighted. I don't think he ever thanked us, but he was delighted that
he paid the bill at least.
Yeah, but we put it together. And I think, and that's where I was going on this, you said it better than me probably, is that to anticipate the client's needs and be able to have and be a resource so that you can figure things out and alleviate a lot of the stress. Because in many of those cases, you come in as a lifesaver, right?
And, the author of this piece, to Tim's last comment about you come in as a lifesaver, he goes to talk about how in his world, there was an employee named Robbie. He was a high-performing machine operator. He fit seamlessly into any crew, and his mechanical skills were outstanding. And he said, but more than that, he solved problems before I knew they existed. He would stop me and say, we have a problem with a conveyor. I lined up an electrician, and we're going to take lunch early so we won't have any downtime. He would stop him and say, next month, Mark's going to need a couple weeks off because his wife will have an operation. I know there won't be any relief operators available, so we're training Steve to take his place. So he eliminated the stress, this employee, by solving the problem for the boss and simply reporting to the boss, there might have been a problem, but I took care of it. Everything's running smoothly. That's, I guess, who you want on the team, right?
Yeah, I was thinking myself, and I actually had an example of a friend we both know, but I was thinking of myself of an employee or a couple employees I had. I remember there was an issue. Remember Greensgrow in Philadelphia?
Yes.
And I just out of the side, just as an aside, I made the comment. I said, Greensgrow was an experimental farm in Philadelphia. It was built on an abandoned factory site, and Subaru had supported them. And I said, I'd really like to figure out a way to, they have very limited resources. I'd like to figure out a way to get them some vehicles to use. And within a day, this employee had already set up a deal and set up a lease and gave them cars. And I got a call from Greensgrow, from Mary Seaton, said, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I had no idea the employee actually did it, but saved hours of time for me trying to figure it out. And then another one, which is just kind of a flip one, and I think you can relate to this. There was a client in town, and everybody was having dinner, and I did not want to go to the dinner. So it was Beth, and she came in to me and said, oh, there's this dinner. I said, Beth, I'm burned out. I really don't want to go to, stop. She said, I already told me you're not going to dinner. She said, I knew you didn't want to go to dinner. She said, but what I told him was, if you had time, you'd swing by, meet us at the bar for a drink before dinner and say hello to everybody. I said, oh my God, that's perfect. So,
did you do it?
Because she anticipated, she knew that I had been traveling and I just got back. And I was like, the last thing I want to do is go to a late night dinner. Oh, no, you don't have to. I've already handled it. I already told me you're not going. I said, oh, so I don't have to do it. And so I think those things are always, when you have an employee like that anticipates where you're going or what you need, I think is just very, very helpful. So I agree with Mark Cuban's assessment on this.
I do too. And I agree with his thing about, the person who thinks they're invaluable ends up being the sticky wicket all the time, causing trouble. To that point, I have another point, oh, come on, just get on the program.
We had a friend, our friend Mark Pipkin worked for the Fed, and Janet Yellen, he would have to give her a report every week. And he told a funny story about they'd started to see all of these mutual funds and things being bought by ATMs in Europe. They couldn't figure out what was going on. So Mark did this whole little, nobody asked him, but he did this whole little story or paper about it, research. gives it to Janet Yellen. She goes into a meeting with Obama, kind of the once a quarter meeting. And he says to her on the spot in front of everybody in the cabinet, what's going on with, I hear from a couple of the European leaders that X, Y, and Z saved her ass. And she was like, oh, by the way, blah, blah, blah. And Mark said he got a very nice note from her and a message thanking him for the work because it really totally saved her. She had no idea. You can't possibly know everything going on. But
No.
it's that employee that anticipates this might be an issue or this might be coming up. And so I think those things are great.
It's a great skill that he profiled, reducing the boss's stress level by doing your job, doing it well.
Yep.
And anticipating. It's like what you just said. Anticipate the problem before it's a problem.
Yeah, and have a solution.
And
Not just that it's a problem. Here's how I'm going to fix it for you.
And
But
actually,
you need
the
to
way
be aware of it.
some of these examples, by the time the boss knew, it's already in the rearview mirror, which
Yep.
means you are really like a godsend, right?
Yep.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here on the Focus Group today. We want to thank you for joining us. We know that you have about 3.2 million. Tim, we should do a thing where we figure out how many are foreign language to subtract from that. So that maybe it's like 1.3.
Yeah.
But either way, we want to thank you for choosing us when you decide to listen to your podcast. Reminder to tune in to TFG Unbuttoned. You could get to that podcast by going to our site, focusgroupradio.com. Click on one of the platforms you might want to subscribe to, Spotify, Apple, etc., Pandora. We're on them all. And big thanks to Deep Discount here on the Focus Group. They're a partner of ours. They're getting ready to do Criterion Month with us. You know, we're going to be giving away movies next month when we play our Pick That Flick game. So last but not least, don't text and drive. Tim and I want you to arrive alive and be with us on the show next week. So have a good one, and we'll see you then.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.